If you want, we can have a deeper discussion about how BBC News rightly choosing to censor Wiley's tweets, but happy to repeatedly say the N-word speaks volumes about the respect Britain has for their black communities and black outrage in general. And that is by a comedian called London Hughes. Hey, this very Tuesday that God said we will cook like chickens in our own skin. The way, listen, I'm half naked recording this, TMI, I know, and I can't put my fan on because obviously recording is picking this all up. So I am just agitated and I've got menstrual cycle pain. I don't understand what's happening with me. I need to dye my hair. I'm just really just here living, trying to live my best life. So we're calling this episode Check Your Tone, Sis, because I feel like a few of you need to be dragged. And there's no better dragging than one of your own. That's how I look at it. I'm doing the Lord's work, do not judge me. I hope you're all doing well though. I hope the week is so far treating you well. I hope you all had a good weekend. If you're listening to this on a Tuesday, because obviously there's a new episode every Tuesday, thank you for joining. Thank you for making sure that you listen each and every Tuesday, or whenever it is that you choose to listen. All the people all over the world outside of the UK that listen, you are appreciated. Listen, when I was thinking about this episode and I was doing the treatment for this episode, I didn't realize how important this episode was to do until I received a Snapchat message. Now, we are gonna, here's someone's phone just going off like this. Oh my God, I'm actually going to the meat of this episode before I even talk about what happened last week. Yeah, Jesus is Lord. Please, if you hear any background noise, it's because I've opened the window. I have to have something on. It's either the fan or the window. So I've switched the fan off now because I know it will pick up. Fan, don't you want to go off? But I have to open the back. I'm really not good today. Like, me and he, we don't get on very well. I'm Nigerian. I know I should know better, but that's just the way my body's set up. Last week, I launched the Toy Talks apparel collection, the affirmation collection. It's the first apparel from Toy Talks. And I released it on Black Pound Day, which is the 1st of August. And I am here to say, as I have said on my Instagram page, but for those of you maybe who don't follow me on Instagram, I don't know why, Toy_Talks, Toy_Washington. The apparel line sold out within 72 hours. 72 hours, can you just deep it? To add to this, on the 1st of August when the apparel line launched, within 4 minutes, it's not 4 minutes, it was actually 2 minutes, I started selling out of sizes for certain affirmations. And then by 4 minutes past, I was out of stock of all the red hoodies and t-shirts. Knowledge is power, power is leverage. And to be honest, I have had to take the time out to really deep what happened last week, because it was confirmation that not only was the apparel line needed, but it was appreciated by a lot of you guys. And you guys supported with your coins. It was amazing, and you guys have started to receive your apparel because it was dispatched last week. My international purchasers, customers, you guys should be receiving yours over the next week or so. I don't know, I think that when I in the process of doing these amazing things, I'm doing it in the hope that it will touch people. So to know that I put out an apparel line and it started selling out within 3 to 4 minutes of the launch, to know that it's sold out completely within 72 hours and people are really enjoying the apparel. And the amazing thing about the apparel is, because it's really hot at the moment, you guys who bought hoodies won't be able to wear it now. And that's the best thing about fashion. You just save it. Then when it gets colder, you put it on. Everybody will be asking you, where'd you get it? And I actually went to Stratford and I had the t-shirt on, and a t-shirt or the jumper, I had one of them on, and I was being stopped and someone asked me where I purchased it from, and I didn't tell them, I designed it. I just said, it's from a black owned business called Toytalks.com. And it was just really nice to be in that situation, be in that position. These kids, I know it's summer holiday, but must you scream from the pitch of your voice, like, what the hell? Jesus is Lord. Do you think I could scream like this when I was younger? My mum would throw water at me and ask me to cool off. Anyway, so yeah, the apparel, it's amazing. And there's so many things in the pipeline of Toy Talks related things that are due to come out due to be released, due to be announced. And the apparel line, the affirmation collection, is limited edition, so I'm not restocking any of the hoodies or t-shirts. Once it was gone, it's gone, and I warned everybody. But yeah, it's been brilliant, and I'm definitely going to take the time to really just reflect and thank God, but more importantly to do a lessons learned. There were a lot of things that I learned from that release that I hadn't considered, and I think for any growing business it's always important to do a lessons learned, so that next time things could be done better. Everybody talks about the user experience of my website. It's seamless. A lot of people purchase the masterclasses, which are still on the website as well. For those people who either bought apparel or couldn't get the apparel they wanted, they still supported the Toy Talks brand by getting the masterclasses and purchasing those. So if you're interested, make sure you go on toytalks.com, and the apparel line is obviously sold out, won't be restocked again, but there's still the masterclasses. So you got the CV masterclass, interview masterclass, negotiation masterclass, and the mother and daughter masterclass. So if you're interested, go ahead on the website, go have a look, purchase any one of those masterclasses. I'm actually thinking of closing the window. If these kids continue to scream, I'm going to close. So guys, listen, check your tone, sis. Listen, I feel like, with every episode of the podcast, I have made sure that I don't just give you the situation, I give you how I dealt with it, possible suggestions, or we'll go through a dilemma. I give you guys my opinion. I am a black woman, therefore I'm pro-black women all day, every damn day. But there comes a point where we also have to check ourselves. I really feel like it's very easy as a minority to look at the majority or look into these white organizations and talk about the things that they do and how they affect inequality. But there are things I believe that we have to be able to do. We have to make sure we have our own homes in order. So this episode is about your tone. Because I realize even when some of you write to me, send me messages, DM, some of you don't check your tone. You think you're talking either to your age mate or your best friend. And I feel like I always want people to communicate with me and feel comfortable and things like that. But there are also boundaries that you just have to respect with other people. So in the world of work, when you guys send some of your emails or when you guys are communicating, your tone is stinking. Your tone is stinking like 30-day-old fish. And rather than checking yourself, you act oblivious to the fact that, and I think it's a lack of self-awareness as well, but I really do think it's your responsibility to check your tone. Last week, there was an email that came into the Toy Talks mailbox. So the email address is hello@toytalks.com. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the contents of that email, but the premise of that email is what I'm going to share with you guys. So my assistant picked up this email and she ran it by me. And before I could express an opinion, she says, Toya, the tone of this email is really poor. It's rude, it's disrespectful, and this person is trying to offer their service to you. Whether it's chargeable or free, they're trying to offer you something. And I just don't think that this is the right way to communicate to somebody, irrespective of whether you know them or not, and this person doesn't know you. So I took the time to read the message myself. And do you know what was disappointing? It was disappointing that the author was a fellow black woman. But in offering her services, she sought to demean me. What do I mean by that? So when she was telling me, she was giving me a shopping list of her accolades, she then referenced the fact that I know you are a law graduate, however, you may not be aware of da-da-da-da-da. And then, and quite rightly so, I am a law graduate, but I'm not just a law graduate, darling. I don't just have the LLB. You know, one has gone to law school, one has a master's. Like, shall I reply with my own shopping list? I digress. Then, as she went on, you could tell that she hadn't even done any research about me. Now, my thing is, if you're going to offer somebody a service and you're going to be pleading holier than thou and how amazing you are and how great, at least research the person who you're going to send the email to. At least give me the respect of understanding that you fully understand what it is that I do. And listening to one episode of the Toy Talks podcast ain't gonna cut it, darling. You need to listen to every episode of the podcast. You need to go on the website. You need to at least have make an informed decision about how you are going to write something, especially when you're going to tell me that you are the great of the greatest. But what really also grinded my gears, why in the subject box is there capitals? Your attention is needed. Are you okay? Why are you shouting? Why are you shouting? Why are you screaming? Why are you bellowing? What the hell? Anyway, my assistant went back and responded, and I had a look at her response before she sent it off, because I said to her, like I always say, take the emotion out of it. And she did do that, but I wanted just to make sure. And when thinking about then putting this episode together, I thought to myself, this black woman is trying to pitch her services, and she really has no clue that even if I was desperate for her service, I would not utilize her services, purely for the fact that you don't know how to talk to somebody. Instantaneous communication is the way in which we all speak to each other. It's the way we communicate, especially in the office. I'm going to give you guys a couple of tips. The first of which is this: if there is an email that you are sending of importance, if you look in Outlook, it has an urgent button and you can press it. It's a red exclamation mark. When you send something in capitals, you're trying to tell me it's urgent. It may be urgent to you, but it is not urgent to me. There should be no reason why you should be writing anything in capitals in the subject box or in the body of your email. It is rude. The same way it's rude to write in red. You know, they say writing in red pen is rude. It's the same concept. When you are sending an email to somebody, you're marking things in red. It doesn't go over well, because people see red as danger. People associate red with something that isn't good. So when we're talking about the tone, we're also talking about the tone, the things that don't say anything but say a lot. You need to understand that every instantaneous communication, every email that you send is a reflection on you. I have been in organizations before where I have been so frustrated, especially working with salespeople. Salespeople don't know how to chat. They don't know how to talk to people, and some of them are just damn right rude. But in studying white people in the way that white people communicate, these people can be cussing your entire generation. But in their email, they will use English, the Queen's English grammar. You can't even catch them there. Successful. In a world that has been set up for white people, you have to learn how to speak like them. You have to almost learn how to communicate in the way they do. The reason why white people are so fantastic at being passive aggressive is because you can't even pinpoint whether it's really passive aggression or it's them communicating. But as black people, we know, because we are the targets, so we know what passive aggressive is. But rather than meet them where they are, we're happy to go in with all guns blazing. Some of the tone of your email that you guys send to me, and then you attach emails that you attach maybe a draft of a letter of an email that you're looking to send to your employers. Some of you, I don't know whether you want to be in your job. I don't know, because I feel like there is one thing when I say to you guys, take the emotion out of it. But am I really here now telling you about your tone? Your tone. I think people don't realize. I don't think that it's not, I'm not sitting here saying that if you're frustrated, you're not supposed to communicate a level of frustration, but there's ways to do it. And I think unless you are willing now to start checking yourself, you're going to get yourself into a lot of problem. When people say, I don't like the tone of your email, sometimes, for me personally, obviously you guys know I'm dyslexic. So I have put systems in place in which I have to check myself. So I reread emails about 10, 15 times, but that's just partly paranoia. I read my emails. I make sure that I put the apostrophe, full stop, capital letters where they're supposed to be. And then I check my tone. I ask myself, what is it that I'm trying to communicate here? Is it being communicated? If I am annoyed at this person that I'm writing to, I don't send emails straight away. I've discussed this before in earlier episodes. I just step away, even if it's a day or two, so that I can really rid myself of all the emotion before I send an email. Now, if I'm communicating something where I'm trying to get someone's attention, there's provocative words you can use. But capitals in the subject box is a no-no. Unless it says private and confidential in capitals. That is the only thing I'd like to see in capitals. But even then, you don't have to do that. You just put capital P for private and capital C for confidential. Do you understand? Like, I don't know what it is about people's tones that they don't realise that it can just take a life of its own. And it could be the difference between the way somebody takes your email, whether they see your email negatively and stop reading it, or whether they see it as antagonistic, and therefore you have now become a target and you're moving now with a target on your back. If you guys remember, season 2, episode 7, dyslexia, I'm a successful Black professional with a learning disability. I talk about how I've managed my learning disability in the world of work. But I also talk about things that I've put in place to check myself, to make sure that my dyslexia not only doesn't get the better of me, but I am managing that dyslexia. I now believe there is such thing called Tone-lexia that some people suffer from. Yes, you heard me straight, Tone-lexia. Because I think you can sit there and tell people about their tone time and time again, but they still won't get it. And I think some people don't have the emotional intelligence to understand that when you're talking about impressions and you're talking about understanding people, your tone is very, very important. Now, don't get me wrong, I definitely think there's some white people out there that will read a tone in a full stop. But let us now just be a bit more aware and a bit more self-aware about how we come across. That is our responsibility. It is our responsibility. Now, email etiquette is one of those things that I feel like I wish I was taught when I left school. I was never taught about email etiquette. And as I've grown up and as I've matured and as I've developed as a young professional, I realize how important email etiquette speaks to tone as well. So for instance, whenever I send an email to somebody, whether I know you or whether I don't, if it's the morning, I'll say, good morning, Amy, good morning, Sharon, good morning, Tom. I always put your name there. If it is in the afternoon, I might say good afternoon, or I might say hi. It depends who my audience is. If I'm talking to one of the shareholders, I might say good afternoon, Mr. Da-da-da, or good afternoon, Stephen, if I'm on a first name basis with them. But all of that speaks to how I come across in an email. There's some really difficult conversations I've had to have via email, and it is about understanding that instantaneous communication also carries its own tone. And we know this, right? You could be saying something to someone in an email that if you were to say verbally would be completely different. And where possible, I would always say pick up the phone, have the conversation, and then send the email summary afterwards. But there are situations, especially now we're in a pandemic, whereby email is how we communicate. And sometimes, even though people are working from home, it's often hard to get them on the phone. And sometimes you've got people who just don't want to be on the phone. But I think that it's high time now you start holding yourself accountable for the tone that you take. Now, this young lady that sent me this email, she went on and on and on, and she split everything into paragraphs, which was fine. You know, I'm dyslexic, so I notice little things like that. And actually, sometimes I have quite a short attention span, so it's really good to have headings in an email. But what really made me think this person is really lacking some awareness here is where she kept spelling my name wrong. So after my PA has responded to her, she came back today because I saw the email, and my name was still wrong. And I thought to myself, so not only have you not even taken the time to actually do your research about the person that you are hoping to work with, you can't even spell my name right. It's all over my website, sis. It's all over the podcast. It shows me that you have a lack of pride about what you do. Because if you have pride in what you do, Number one, even if you didn't know that your email had a tone, from the response of the other person, you should be able to decipher, oh, I don't think my initial email went down very well, especially when you've initiated this communication. Then, that notwithstanding, you're spelling the person's name wrong. It shows a lack of pride that you're taking in what this person is doing. And the tone of it is very nonchalant, laissez-faire, very ah la la, like it's not important. I take what I do very seriously. I take the responsibility of what I do very seriously. And I understand that when people are asking me for help, when people are accessing the platform, people are doing so because they're wanting to obtain certain information. I understand that when I am communicating with other businesses, or when I am having conversations, or just any type of email instantaneous communication, I'm not only representing myself, I'm representing the Toya Talks brand. Therefore, how I communicate is very important. There is no point putting capitals in things when I don't have the authority to do it. Do you know what I mean? So you could have somebody who's a CEO of a company. Maybe they feel like they can, and there's nothing you can do about it. But it's about how you hold yourself out. How do you represent yourself in an email? There are people who will send emails and don't even put your name on there, or don't even say hi. They'll just say Toya, da 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 da. I find that so rude. Maybe I'm being a little sensitive, but for me personally, I have a name. God bless me with parents who saw fit to give me a name. The least you can do is call me by my name. Hello is inexpensive. It costs nothing actually. Good afternoon costs nothing. Just a simple hi. But I find, especially with line managers, because I think it's the way they assert their authorities. They feel like they don't have to greet you before they say your name. They just call your name like they're shouting at you. I just, personally for me, it speaks to the fact of a lack of etiquette more than anything else. And I hold myself personally to a higher standard. And I'm sure a lot of you hold yourself to a personal higher standard. My thing will always be, they say when they go low, go high. That is my mantra at work. I'm never going to be that person that mirrors behavior that I know that is disgusting. So if somebody sends me an email, not even hi, hello, nothing, just puts my name there or writes my name in capitals, I will always respond, hi Michael, hi this, thank you for your email. Always respond like that, because that is the prelude before I cuss you, and I'll cuss you in such a passive aggressive way. Even you and I will know what it is, but for an audit trail purposes, it will look like I'm just talking about a certain topic that in which you're seeking to ascertain or obtain information from me about. I will never ever show my hands in an email. It's not going to happen. You will never ever have my crown move or tilt to one side because of an email that you've sent to me. Equally, I understand that email could end up anywhere. And this is the other thing that people don't realize. You may think that your email that you're sending is going to this person. You don't know who they've blind copied in. You don't know who's going to see that email, and yet you choose to take this tone in an email, or choose to relinquish yourself of any responsibility to do with a tone in an email, and you think that either it's another person. But when you are working in an organization and you're an employee, I genuinely believe that part of surviving in an organization is checking your tone. It's a bit more difficult when it's verbal, because I believe that is like with the verbal thing, it's left to interpretation. Whereas when you write something down, yes, to an extent it's left to interpretation, but people fall foul of a negative interpretation because of the way they write emails. Don't let your tone get the better of you, and don't let your tone in an email resign you out of a job. So even if this young lady that sent me an email, even if I wanted her services, her tone tells me that if I was to work with her, how she would represent me is not how I want to be represented. Because when she sent me that email, personally for me, I was more offended at the fact that I just couldn't believe that a black woman of her caliber, as she has told me of every accolade going, doesn't understand on a basic level that obtaining new business could be made or lost by the tone of her email. Because when she hits the send button, to whoever she's emailing. That karma of bad tone will come and find her. So it's a no from me. I'm not working with somebody that can't even construct an email on my behalf. It's mad. I can't do it. I'm sorry. If that's how you talk to me, how are you going to talk to other people? And the worst part of it is, I think for people are quite elementary in the way they see themselves. I've always told you guys, even as a career professional, you're still a brand. I think people seem to think that you're only a brand if you're on social media, and that's not the truth. As a career professional, as somebody who has career goals and objectives, as somebody who is seeking success, as somebody who is pursuant of that success, actively pursuant of that success, you have to see yourself as a brand. Because if you start seeing yourself as a brand, you'll start being more conscious about how you come across. Now, remember, you need to find the balance. I'm not sitting here saying you need to be the perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. But don't allow an opinion about you to be created by your own hand, and this opinion that you wouldn't have otherwise wanted. In taking responsibility for your tone, you have to first ask yourself, what is it that I am trying to communicate here? Am I doing so effectively? And how will the person possibly receive my tone? Especially if you are seeking something, you're wanting help. Especially if you are communicating bad news. There's ways to do it. When somebody has pissed me off and somebody has copied in everybody in the team to try and embarrass me, in that moment, I want to show them that, number one, you can't do that shit to me. Number two, I want to make that person look stupid. But number three, I want to come across as the seasoned professional that I am. How do I do it? Short, sharp, punchy, straight to the point, but it will always remain professional. I'm sorry, guys, about that noise. I will always remain professional. My favourite line is, for the avoidance of doubt. For the avoidance of doubt, I've taken the opportunity to attach. You know when I'm saying for the avoidance of doubt, in case you're too stupid to focus on what I'm saying. That's what I'm really trying to say. Or if somebody has said something in an email that is untrue, there's ways of saying things. You mentioned in the previous email that I said blah, 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 blah. I think, however, you may have slightly got this misconstrued. In fact, what I was trying to communicate is there's ways to communicate. You see, this English language, the white man has developed it in such a way that you can say so many things and not say a lot. You can say certain things and infer certain things without saying too much. But in the workplace, you have to be professional. So whatever mask it is that you need to put on, you need to find it. At work, I have seasoned professional. I have the bitch that will show up. I have the person that will make you look like a flipping fool. I have different masks at work, but it's the way. And when I have spoken to previous employers and had conversations with people I've previously worked for, the common thing that is said is how I carry myself. It's not just how you carry yourself eyeball to eyeball. It's also in email communication. In the communication that sometimes you may not even meet this person ever. Maybe you will never even speak to this person. It's how I come across. What impression am I trying to leave with this person? Now, if you don't care, that's one thing. But if you're going to work for somebody else in a white construct, you need to start taking the time to care about how you come across. You don't know what rooms people are talking about you in. You don't know where those emails are going to be read and what rooms they're going to be read in. Because you've got to remember, if somebody has a preconceived idea about you, even if your intention wasn't to have a certain tone, a white person, especially white women, all these Karens, they will find a way to read that email in the tone in which they want your email to be perceived. So don't place something in your email, or don't place a tone in your email that you can't stand by. Don't place a tone in your email that you cannot defend. And more importantly, don't neglect to check yourself, because no one's going to do it. No one is going to check you. And after doing all of this, if you still stand by the tone of that email, you hit the send button. But I feel like a lot of people are ignorant to the tone. And it's that ignorance that gets them into trouble. Oh, I didn't do anything wrong. She said my email was da-da-da. But did you actually read your email before you sent it? Could you even be bothered to do a grammar and spell check on a basic level? Have you spelt this person's name right? Have you signed off correctly? Kind regards. Or did you just sign off Toya? Or whatever your name is? Email etiquette speaks to your tone too. In my early 20s, I was working at Royal Borough, Kensington and Chelsea. And there was this, I was working doing the admin, team admin. And there was the head of the department, and I really couldn't stand her. She was always like clock watching me. If I went to the printer, she would always comment on how long I was at the printer. Like, I really thought the printer hated me because the amount of paper jams that thing would put me through. And one day she sent me this email, and this email was quite accusatory in nature. Basically that I'm not utilising my time and therefore not finishing work on time. And when she, in the subject box, and she wrote private discussion points to discuss, or points to be discussed. And she didn't even say hi Toya, nothing. She just wrote Toya, and then she listed everything like a shopping list on a Friday afternoon. And my response back to her was Daisy, I do not appreciate, and then I just went on and on and on and on. I didn't even say kind regards, nothing. I just wrote Toya. I was there for approximately a week and a half after that email, and then I was gone. I was agency staff as well. I was gone. Yeah. I wasn't smart. Just because she was being rude in tone, I didn't have to meet her where she was. I could still tell her she was stupid without actually having to meet her at the level in which she was. I didn't have to do that. Especially knowing that she was the manager and she had the authority to basically terminate my contract. I walked right into it. Early 20s. Listen, I was wild in my early 20s, you know. I was just, when I say wild, insofar as I definitely think that I just didn't have the developed self-awareness that I needed to be able to survive in the workplace. And then I had to go through a lot of crap, a lot of shit, to be able to sit here and say, hey guys, here's what my success looks like. Here's how I've obtained it. But hey, I've had to walk through a lot of shit to get here. But I don't want you guys to have to walk through that same shit. Because with all that crap that I had to go through, I carried the trauma of it. So I was in organizations, I was working through past trauma, then dealing with the racial tension in certain organizations, dealing with feeling underrepresented and feeling very marginalized. So there's all these things that we have to carry. And what I'm saying to you guys is this podcast, I hope with every episode will make your working life better, because I'm hoping before you get to make the mistakes I did, you can hear from me about how I dealt with it, how it worked out, and how I got to where I am now, so that you can avoid some of these pitfalls. But there are some people that openly know it's a pitfall and will walk towards it. Some people who have lost their jobs or been sacked, and you feel like it's come from nowhere. It's come from somewhere, you know. But you people who don't have the ability to self-reflect refuse to look at yourself. You refuse to look at yourself. And until you start taking stock of yourself and what you do and how you come across, you're always going to find yourself in a situation whereby it feels like it comes from nowhere, and suddenly you've got no job. And then when it becomes a pattern, the common denominator then becomes you. Don't get it twisted. Sometimes you can send an email. Remember I said there may be no tone in it, but somebody will read a tone. But I'm talking about the emails where there is a tone, or where you don't even take care to ensure that you're coming across or you're communicating the right things. Those are the type of emails I'm talking about. As black women, they already think we're aggressive. They already think we've got attitude. They already think we're coming to fight. Then you want to add a tone on top of it. Like, let us manage what we can manage, innit? Those stereotypes, I would hope, and I would like to think through the resurgence of Black Lives Matter, that we can start to deal with those stereotypes and call them what they are, which is racist. But when we're dealing with the tone in which you communicate with people, that is a personal thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I think people can misinterpret a tone. People can make a mistake and people can make an assumption. Okay, that happens all the time. Even in the last, I'd say, couple of years, it's happened to me where somebody was having a bad day and almost manifested their bad day into my email, and my email had nothing to do with anything or any tone that they decided to place on it. But because of the reputation I have and because of the way I write, I was able to let that person know it's not what you say it is, it's in your head. And then when they went to go and seek support, the person they were proposing to get the support from was like, no, Toy is always really polite. So can you see where it can then not be assumed in that situation that suddenly this email is, I think we need to start taking accountability, because for some reason, I think a lot of us have gotten so comfortable with just not being accountable and being accountable to yourself. If something keeps happening to you and you're the common denominator, sis, you become the problem, you are the issue. And there has to be then a period of reflection where you start to then ask yourself why this is happening and work through it and almost learn from those situations so they don't happen again. Some people, they don't know how to communicate very well. And they have all the energy for social media. You'll see them like tapping away like their life depended on it as they're DMing and speaking to people that they don't know disrespectfully. But you don't know how to carry energy to your work emails. You don't know how to do that. Asking for common time off, you don't even know how to write that down. You will be planning it for weeks and weeks about how you're going to ask for something that you're entitled to. But you can't even check yourself. But you're very ready to check people on social media though. Or carry a hashtag or tell people about themselves, people that you don't know. But when it is time to check yourself, when it's time to do some self-development, no, that's the one that you cannot do. So a few hours ago, I was on Snapchat and I was basically telling people about my nails, and I use dipping powder. I've used dipping powder for about 5 years now. And I was saying, sometimes it's really hard to grow my nails. Like my nails are healthy, but I'm not sure why they're not growing at the speed I'm used to. And I was like, oh, they're orange, I'm going to change the colour. Just a normal snap, nothing too... And then a young lady sent me a message and she says, in brackets, and I read, don't bite my head off like you always do, close brackets, but have you tried any vitamins for hair, nails and skin? Normally 3 in 1. I bite my nails, but the vitamins grow my natural nails literally overnight. You can research which is best for you, capital if interested. I don't know who this person is. And Snapchat doesn't save previous conversations. But what it did show me was a line that I had sent previously where I had said to her, and I said something like, I didn't ask for your advice or something like that. So out of the blue, she's just emailed me this. She's just DM'd me this on Snapchat. So I responded, hang on. How can you send someone a message and the opening statement is, don't bite my head off like you always do? What type of reaction do you expect to receive when you start off a message like that? If you feel as though your head is being bitten off, why don't you check the behavior that has caused that reaction? It's very, very bizarre. Clearly your head is still on your shoulders because you have come again. That's what I wrote to her. And then she starts writing. I thought, I'm going to fucking get an essay here. And I thought, no, I'm not doing this. The only person in my life that I argue with is my mum. I don't argue with people, I really don't. So I sent her a message. I says, in order to preserve your head so that it can no longer be bitten off and then fall off, I'm going to block you. And I just blocked the person. That is a classic example of not only passive aggressiveness, but tone. Her tone is passive aggressive. Firstly, why is it that, especially on social media, somebody who hasn't asked you, you take it upon yourself to go and give them advice? They didn't ask you for the advice. And if you follow me on social media, you'll know that if I want advice, I ask for it. But even if it's unsolicited advice, it's the way you come across. Hey Toya, I know you didn't ask this, but I found this really, really helpful. I think maybe you might. What this head biter? doesn't realize is I do use vitamins, but I need to understand, and she needs to be more concerned at the vitamins and the side effects of those vitamins that she's taking that work overnight. Because sis, they may be working overnight and ravaging your stomach, or it may be making you constipated. Then you want to do capital if. It's such passive aggressiveness. This is what I'm saying to you. When you're sending messages and you're in the subject box, maybe capitals, or you may not have capitals, but then in the body of your emails, then you're putting capitals, if interested. So let me get this right. You feel that in the past, I've previously bitten your head off. Then you have come again with the same attitude that probably got your head bitten off, as you so put it. But now you've come again with your passive aggressiveness. You think that you're going to be received very well. You will not. Can you see what I'm saying? Some of you are taking this, your social media behavior, into the office. And then you're finding yourself in tough time, or you're finding yourself without a job. Why is it that people feel so comfortable to feel like this is somebody you don't know, you've never spoken to? But people on social media who have followed me for a while know I give it to you straight, no chaser. But if I need help or I want advice, I always ask, hi guys, what do you think of this? Where can I get this? What's your opinion about this? But you decided in your peanut brain to message me and tell me, don't bite my head off like you always do. Like I always do. So you are a victim of Toya. Well, if that is the case, why have you come back? I don't understand. Make it make sense, sis. And I'm not crazy. So if I put you in your place and you've interpreted as biting your head off, it's because you overstepped my boundaries, darling. So I have to make sure you have to get back over the line. I don't know what it is where people feel this burst of energy. Maybe they've been eating a lot of Starburst, fruit pastels, donuts, coffee, I don't know, anything that gives them extra energy. To feel as though you have the right, just because you have access, then you have the right to send somebody whatever you want. And it doesn't stop in social media. You will then go into the office with your big, bad, hard shoulders to be doing the same thing. This energy that you have in the office, you don't have the same energy for the wasteman that's in your house. You don't have the same energy for the bathtub that has the dirty ring around it. You don't have the same energy to wash your bath. To wash your tongue, you haven't washed your tongue this morning, but it's the same mouth that you're going to use to justify your stupidity and then start sending mad emails. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? The odds are stacked against us already, and then you feel like you want to make it worse. To develop self-awareness is to understand how you come across to other people, how people perceive you, how people take you. People perceive you how you put yourself out there. No one is perfect. No one's asking you to be perfect. But what I am asking you to do is be accountable. Be accountable to yourself. Be honest with yourself. Do I keep getting the same reaction because it's something I'm doing? Do people keep saying the same things to me? And these people that are saying the same things don't know each other, but they're saying these things. Are there things within my personality that I need to alter, amend, change, or reflect on to make me a better person? Don't you realize your tone can also affect if you pass your probation? How you communicate with your team members, how they take you. Don't get it twisted. There are some people that will, like I said, will find tone where there's no tone. But don't give people the excuse they need by just going head in to something. Read your emails before you hit the send button. If it is not urgent, don't make it a priority. Don't put the urgent. If it's not private and confidential, don't write private and confidential. But please, please, please stop writing in capitals. If you want to shout, go into a room, close the door and shout at yourself. Stop shouting at people. Unless you know that you're in a position that you are happy to be shouted at, stop shouting at people. Understand that in the workplace, there are hierarchies, whether you like it or not. There are people who are in charge, whether you think they should be in those positions or not. They are there. So until you are in a position of influence, until you have some type of leverage or power, you don't have the right to feel like you can meet them where they are by taking on or mirroring the tone in which they have set for you. Don't allow these Oyibo people to set you up. They will set you up because you've already shown your hand. Your emotions are on your sleeve. You've got all the tone in the world, all the fight and bite in the world in an email. And then when you're in a room and they're basically telling you they're extending your probation, your bottom lip is quivering as if you're cold. Where are your manners? Do you know the power of saying please and thank you? Or just having basic manners in an email? Do you know how far it can actually get you? That could be the difference between whether somebody says yes or no, or whether somebody helps you or not. One of the tech companies I used to work for, I basically looked after a particular category, and I was working quite closely with salespeople. Anybody who's worked with salespeople will know that salespeople are good at selling because they've got the gift of the gab, but they don't have patience. They're often quite rude, and I'd say quite aggressive in nature, and I mean that from a verbal perspective and in an email. Now, when you're working in organisations, people have to get to know you. They test your boundaries and stuff. And, I keep telling you guys, but we are going to talk about that in the probation episode of the Toy Talks podcast that I need to record in a couple of weeks. And when I say that you work somewhere and you kind of, I wouldn't say prove yourself, but people need to see the fibre of who you are in the way you deliver your role. So I would say, what's worked for me is setting my boundaries from the gate, from the beginning, not taking any crap, but equally being fair, being a person that can stick up for myself, but not necessarily seeing everything as an opportunity to prove a point. But in this particular team where I was heading up all their contracts, there was a particular sales guy called Sam. Sam don't know how to talk to people. He talks to people like they're trash. It's just what he does, and he gets away with it because he sells at the end of the day. And it's up for the contracts team, where I sat, to basically draft these contracts and make sure that his deal is watertight from a contractual perspective. Now, having really established good relationship with the sales team, delivering on their contracts, making sure that their deals are done properly, and that from a legal perspective as well, that the interest of the organisation is being taken care of. And Sam one day sent me an email, and it wasn't an email to start with. He sent me like a, what do you call it? Like the instant messages. And then he sent me an email. And I thought, okay, it's just easier to go back to him on instant messaging. And I said to him, I'm not really too sure about your email. Can you just clarify? And I wrote it down. And then he wrote, Toya, it's not for me to tell you what to do, but in this instance, I think that you should. And it goes, furthermore, it's a waste of my time to tell you what I think you should do when I work in sales. That's how he was talking to me. This is me that was trying to help him. Can you see his tone? I went upstairs because I decided I didn't want an audit trail. I went upstairs to where they were sitting. I said, Sam, I'd like to talk to you in a room, please. And obviously, big, bad, mad and crazy, when I went up there, he's looking baffed because obviously he's used to talking to people like that. He's used to having that type of tone, dismissive, patronising, and just downright rude. When he got into the room, I said, Sam, and this is exactly how I said it to him. I said, who do you think you're talking to? Why do you think that you can send me a message like that? Who do you think you're talking to? He said, what do I mean? That he was just answering. I said, Sam, don't raise your voice to me. Do you understand? I said to him, take it down. I said, I don't care what point you were trying to prove in the message. I don't care. But that's not how you're going to talk to me ever in your life. Make that be the last time you ever talk to me like that. Do you understand? I said, and when you speak to me, you're going to speak to me with respect. I guarantee you that's what you're going to do. I said, Sam, don't let this happen again. But I was calm. No waving hands, nothing, because the room we were talking in is glass. So when we walked out of the room, I said, bye, Sam, have a good day. So everybody's just thinking, oh, it's just Toys having a quick chat. Do you know when I went downstairs, I saved that message that he sent, and that particular deal contract that he wants me to work on, I sat on it for over a week. Yes, I did. Let me confess my sins here. I sat on it for a week. This man was going around telling everybody the commission he's going to get it for this month based on this deal. So I made sure that he didn't get it. Yeah, that's what I did, to teach him a lesson. Do you know that when he tried to complain that I didn't put the contract through on time, I'd already covered my back. And my manager was like, well, how can Toy do it if you haven't got this, and this approvals? Toy sent you an email asking you for all these things. Now, ordinarily, guys, I would bypass certain things just to get the deal through for them, especially from a legal perspective if everything is in order. All the admin stuff we could do at the end. But this one, I wanted to follow it by the letter, to teach this stupid bastard a thing or two. Yeah, when he's walking around, his shoes are so shiny. Honest to God. This man's shoes were so shiny, it was hurting my eyes. He's so arrogant. The way he walks, the way he talks. He's the type of person. See how he's doing all that? But if he sees me in the lift, he will just ignore me like I don't exist. Yeah, mannerless bastard. So I thought, I'm going to teach you a lesson. After that day, do you think Sam ever spoke to me with any type of tone that wasn't professional? No. The reason I tell you this story is to tell you guys a tone can make or break how somebody responds to you. I had his deal in the palm of my hands. He wanted it to go through that month. I said to myself, I'm going to teach you a lesson because I've spoken to you in the room and I stuck it to you, and you know not to go do that again. But I need to make sure it penetrates into your back of your head, into your frontal lobe as well, so that you can, every time you see me, you know not to fuck with me. This is why I tell you lot about tone, because this person that you're using this tone for can affect your job, your career. Sam was working in the sales team and he was basically trying to intimidate me because that's what he'd done to other people, and then he gets his way. Then what he does is he'll take it off email and put it on the instant messaging. But you can save all those instant messages. And one thing with me is anything I write down, I stand by. The things that I don't want there to be an audit trail of, I won't write down. I'll go upstairs and talk to you. You tell me it's my word against yours. Where's your proof? Yes. There is more than one way to skin a cat. But one thing I have learned is don't be too quick to start putting all your attitudes and your angst in an email. Don't you know that your tone of an email is a soft skill? You have to work on your soft skills. Maybe they don't teach you that. Soft skills, the way you communicate to people. Yes. But people don't develop these soft skills, or at least they don't know that they need to develop them, and they find themselves in a fuckery. Don't find yourself in a fuckery situation and then you're looking for someone to blame other than yourself. Let me tell you this so everybody is clear. And I'm glad I'm doing this episode so that when somebody moves mad, I'm just going to direct them, give them the link. If you send me a DM message, albeit on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, wherever it is, and you don't even say hello, you just go straight to whatever it is you want to say. Not even hi Toya, there's no please, no thank you, no type of manners. Just understand that I'm not even going to respond to you. And the next time you come and check the message, you'll be blocked. I'm not having it. Because you lot don't take this energy to your workplace. You're not going to bring it onto social media. Not with me anyway. And some of you are taking your social media tone into your offices. During a pandemic where everybody's looking for a job. Don't do it to yourself. I'm not going to tolerate crap from anybody. It's not going to happen. And the older I get, the more I realise the less and less crap I need to take. Let us now start treating people how we like to be treated. Don't take your mannerless social media behaviour into your offices and think that you can bypass professionalism because you think you're right. Nobody gives a shit. No one cares if you're right. It's not about being right. It's about being professional and understand that you have to put your professional hat on. Your social media thuggery will not be tolerated in an office. It's not going to happen. Yeah, don't set yourself up, sis. It's literally not worth it, and it's not worth the stress when all you had to do was check your tone. So as my father, God rest his soul, used to say, those who have ears, let them hear. And as one of my very good friends says, those who do not hear will feel. Right, so I wanted to move on to another topic, and it is discussing the BBC. So recently, as I think this was last week, the BBC were reporting a particular story, and on two separate occasions by two separate broadcasters, they used the N-word. There was uproar. People were quite rightly saying, listen, you can't use them type of words. I'm so sorry. It doesn't matter if you're referencing somebody. It doesn't matter if you were referencing a quote, whatever. You can't say that word. It's derogatory, it's discriminatory in nature, and its origins are racist. The BBC defended the use of the N-word. Yeah, those people that charge TV license. Yeah, they charged us TV license to then put us through listening to the N-word. But you and I know that if they used words that were anti-Semitic, if they used words that were discriminatory towards the LGBTQ community, if they use words that related to another minority group that was racist, not only would BBC apologise, not only would they apologise, they'll issue a statement. Yes. But for us, they defended the use of that word. Then, Sideman, I don't, that's his nickname. I don't know what his real name is. I think his real name is David. I think is BBC One Extra. He came out with a statement and basically said, you know what? I can't work for an organisation that defends the use of the N-word when they're referencing a black person like me. I can't in good faith work for you. And his statement was quite powerful. But his then decision was to step down and resign from his post. And I listened to his reasoning and I listened to his statement, and I was very, very proud as a black woman to watch a fellow black person stand up for something that he believes in because he refuses to fall for anything. And it must have been a massive decision for him to make, because I'm sure that's where his bread and butter comes from. But when I deeped it, I had to say to myself, if I was in the exact same position as him, I would do the same. I can't work for an employer who basically defends the use of the N-word. So basically, you're defending racism, is what you're defending. And if you check it, it's all white people sitting in those top positions that are basically telling us, yeah, we're allowed to use that word, we're defending the use of that word. It's unimaginable that could ever be allowed. Because after everything that's happened with the Black Lives Matter movement, and as a community being a lot more vocal about racism, you would think that a broadcaster as big as the BBC would just know better. And then I was on Twitter, and London Hughes, who I quoted earlier on at the opening of this episode, she tweeted something and I wanted to read it to you guys. I've been asked to go on Newsnight tonight to talk about the BBC, but politely declined. I've never seen a productive and fair TV debate about race in the UK. And when it comes to this issue, there's no debate for me. Having to justify why it was wrong feels like a step backwards. Whoever does decide to go on has my full support. I only wish I was actually in the country to watch it. As far as I'm concerned, there should be no debate about race. And the fact that white people want to debate race tells me they want to defend racism. When you are working for an employer who are intrinsically racist, there will come a point where you, on a personal level, are going to be confronted with their racial bias against you. And at that point, it's a call for action. What do you do? Do you grin and bear it because that is where you're making your money? You've got a family to feed, bills to pay? Or do you make a stand? I completely understand people who continue to remain in certain organisations despite the racial prejudice that is at the forefront of certain organisations. I get it. But on a personal level, for me, I can't work for an organisation that defends racism. Because in defending racism, they seek to continue to oppress me. And I view it as the colonizer keeping hold of what is precious to them, which is racism. And it's at the condemnation of black people. And I'm not having it. So I would look for another employment. I couldn't stay there because it's only a matter of time before that employer will have me compromising my morals to accommodate their racism, and I'm not doing it. The BBC has had a long history of racial bias and prejudice. And if it's not them losing certain things that are precious to the black community, so who remembers, I think it's Desmond's, they said that they can't find the old film, but they can find those films for only Fools and Horses and rerun them. But when it comes to black people, I just find with the BBC, they've always fallen short of what is an acceptable way of treating black people. There are so many stories that have come out, and I use the word allegedly because clearly, and it's been alleged as well with the BBC that there is a lot of prejudice in certain divisions and certain teams there. And I know for a fact, and actually I have to say allegedly, I know allegedly I have had friends or colleagues that have worked for the BBC that have their own experiences as black people. I think it should be commended that Sideman would stand up and defend and stand up for what he believes in, but I think it sparks off a greater debate, and the debate is, what is it that we're willing to accept as a community? Does it mean that we have to make up all this noise for the BBC now to release a statement and say, that they they basically denounced or condemned the use of the N-word? But it wasn't what they did initially. They defended it. That was their first reaction, was what they first believed, as far as I'm concerned. And I keep talking about the white man's need to hold on to racism. But please let us take note of something. The BBC have only acknowledged and apologised for one incident. The N-word was said twice last week. Twice. So they've only apologised for one. And I wish I could sit here and say BBC do better, but they won't. They'll just do what they can get away with. And as a community, I think it's important that we recognise and see this as this is happening live and direct. Because I'm starting to think about that TV license and whether it should be paid this month, but that's a discussion for another day. So we are going to draw this episode to a close. Again, I apologise for the background noise. I had to leave the window open because it is so hot in here. And I haven't had the fan on because I can't have both noise. I apologise, but I thank you for coping, bearing, listening and supporting this episode. Listen, I've really enjoyed delivering this episode to you. Thank you so much for listening to the Toy Talks podcast. There are a few people that have asked me about the masterclasses. Again, I reiterate, the masterclasses are available exclusively on the toytalks.com website. They're really useful. They're really, really handy, especially during this pandemic, and more importantly to aid you guys into getting a job, keeping a job, and more importantly how to negotiate as well. I would also like to say that I do appreciate all the messages that I get sent. I read every one of them and try to respond as well. Anybody who is asking or wondering if I do public speaking events, I actually do, and I had been booked to do a couple before the pandemic. But if you want to book me for anything, obviously I charge, and I have to just put that out there because I think people tend to think this is charity work, and it isn't. So if you're looking to book me, then obviously email hello@toytalks.com. And also as well, follow me on social media, guys. I need to start being a bit more present on like my social media, especially like Instagram and Twitter. Like I am trying, but I do need to put a bit more effort into that. So if you prefer to follow me on social media, make sure you follow my handles. So Twitter is Toya_W, Instagram is Toya_Washington, and Toya_Talks, and of course Snapchat Toya Washington, all one word. Before recording this episode, I had a look on the Apple podcast chart, and the Toy Talks podcast is actually charting number 73 in the career section, which is absolutely fantastic. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast. It really does help me out. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me every Tuesday for a new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. Thank you so much. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys next week, Tuesday. My name is Toy Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.